I have observed, in the long corridors of human nature, that there are 7 types of people who drain your energy without you realizing it. And if you have ever felt an invisible heaviness settle upon you after certain encounters, like a faint shadow cast across your inner light, then you already know this truth, even if you could not yet name it. I speak of these people not with judgment, but with the quiet precision of one who has spent a lifetime studying the anatomy of the soul, as carefully as I once studied the anatomy of the human body. There are figures who appear gentle, ordinary, harmless, yet their presence steals something delicate from you, the way a silent draft steals warmth from a room without stirring a single candle flame. If you have ever walked away from someone feeling mysteriously tired, emptied or subtly diminished, as if some invisible hand had brushed against your spirit, then you have already encountered one of these 7. They move through life like actors, unaware of the roles they play, and you, without noticing, become the canvas upon which they spill their unresolved shadows. Most people call this coincidence, or chemistry, or simply a bad day. But you who are more intuitive, more spiritual, more attuned to the fragrances of the unseen, you feel the tremor beneath the surface. You sense when someone's presence tugs at the threads of your inner fabric. As I speak to you, imagine I place before you a sheet of parchment. Upon it, 7 faint silhouettes, not yet defined, not yet named, only contours, like early sketches of a painting waiting for truth. You will recognize them, perhaps painfully, perhaps with a quiet exhale of relief. For every intuitive spirit carries the memory of those who siphoned its light long before it understood the value of what it carried, and these encounters often leave a residue in the mind, like charcoal dust left behind after an unfinished drawing. There is a particular ache known only by those who feel deeply, a spiritual sensitivity that is both a gift and a wound. You see more than you wish to see, hear more than is spoken, perceive currents of emotion and intention that others remain blissfully unaware of, and because of this heightened awareness, you become a magnet for beauty, yes, but also for distortion. It is the double-edged blade of intuition. The same antenna that guides you toward truth also exposes you to hidden forms of human hunger. These 7 types do not always shout their presence. Some whisper, some smile, some lean on you gently, some love you in ways that are not truly love. And because they do not announce themselves as thieves of energy, you let them close closer than your instincts would prefer. They feed on the subtle radiance that intuitive people carry, often unconsciously, like plants bending towards sunlight. You do not notice the draining at first. The body remains composed, the breath steady, but the soul always knows. It senses the slow erosion, the way marble senses the chisel long before the first crack appears. People often imagine energy theft as dramatic, loud, obvious, but the truth is quieter, like erosion by water. A drop here, a drop there, until one day you awaken and realize a part of you has been worn down into a shape you no longer recognize. You find yourself more tired, more doubtful, less vibrant, less alive. These 7 types are not villains in a grand tale. They are simply unaware of the weight they place upon others. Yet awareness does not soften the impact. As the years passed and I watched human beings move like constellations across one another's lives, I learned that the ones who drain us most deeply are the ones we never suspect. They may hide behind kindness or fragility, or these 7 types of people rarely arrive in your life with thunder. They appear softly, almost gracefully, like figures emerging from the mist in one of my old sketches. And because they enter without noise, you welcome them. You mistake familiarity for harmony. You confuse emotional pull with spiritual connection, yet what draws you to them is often not destiny, but an unresolved echo inside you, an echo they instinctively respond to. The first sign of an energy-draining presence is not dramatic. It is subtle, like the dimming of a lantern's flame. You will notice it in the quiet moments after the conversation ends, when the echo of their voice lingers inside you longer than it should. Intuitive people feel this more acutely because we are made of softer thresholds. We sense the emotional temperature of a room as precisely as a painter senses the precise shade between light and shadow. When someone drains you, the imbalance is immediate, even if your mind has not yet interpreted the message your body has already sent. There are those who drain you through their constant need for reassurance, souls whose internal architecture is fragile, like clay not yet hardened in the kiln. They cling to you gently yet continuously, seeking validation, as if your presence were the only thread holding them together. Their gratitude feels warm at first, almost tender, but with time, you begin to feel the weight of holding someone who refuses to stand on their own legs. You do not realize the draining until you notice that your own clarity has become clouded by their endless uncertainties. Others drain you not through need, but through noise. These are the individuals who carry storms within them, thunderous and unpredictable. They speak endlessly yet reveal nothing true. They demand your attention as if silence were dangerous. Their chaos spills into your peaceful spaces, and because you are compassionate, you absorb it like a sponge meant for water, but handed fire instead. It takes only a few moments with them for your internal harmony to become dissonant, like an instrument tuned by careless hands. Then there are the charming ones, polished like marble but hollow like abandoned statues. They dazzle with confidence, with brilliance, with a charisma that feels like sunlight. But beneath that glow lies a hunger, not for connection, but for admiration. They do not see you, they see a mirror, and they drain you because you become the stage upon which they rehearse their greatness. You mistake their intensity for intimacy, but it is merely a performance, and every performance demands an audience's energy. Some drain you by hiding. These are the evasive souls, walking enigmas who wrap themselves in mystery, not as a natural trait, but as a shield. You spend your energy trying to decipher them, imagining depth where there is only avoidance. Their silence is not sacred, it is strategic, and you, intuitive as you are, feel compelled to illuminate what lies in their shadows. But your light does not transform them, it only exhausts you. There are also those who drain by comparison. They speak to you with a subtle, gentle tone, yet their words carry the sharpness of a blade dipped in honey. They measure your steps against theirs, your achievements against their expectations. They make you feel almost enough, but not quite. And this almost becomes a slow, corrosive poison. You begin shrinking yourself to avoid provoking their insecurity, and in that shrinking, you lose parts of your essence. Another type drains by living perpetually in crisis. Their lives unfold like a never-ending tragedy, each chapter more urgent than the last. You become their anchor, their savior, their unasked-for counselor. And because you are empathetic, you respond. But the crisis never ends, because without chaos, they would have to confront the silence within themselves. You cannot save someone who finds comfort in the burning of their own house. And finally, there are those who drain you simply because they refuse to see you. They talk, but do not listen. They take, but do not give. They assume, but do not understand. To them, you exist not as a soul, but as a function, a role assigned, a service provided, a light consumed. Being unseen is perhaps the most devastating way to be drained, for the soul withers not from lack of love, but from lack of recognition. What all seven share is this: they touch your energy before they touch your hand, and you feel the disturbance long before you can explain it. Intuitive, spiritual people often blame themselves for this sensation, believing they are too sensitive, too demanding, too dramatic. But sensitivity is not weakness, it is awareness. It is the ability to perceive the invisible architecture of human intention. If you have ever walked away from someone feeling smaller, tighter, dimmer, or strangely hollow, you did not imagine it. You simply detected what others overlook. Your energy reacts before your logic does, just as a bird senses a storm before humans see the first cloud. Your body is the compass, your intuition is the map, and your discomfort is the unspoken truth trying to rise to the surface. There is a moment, quiet and nearly imperceptible, when your spirit realizes it is being siphoned. A faint tightening behind the ribs, a subtle dullness in the breath, a strange heaviness that does not belong to you. Intuitive people feel this first, long before the mind catches up. It is like observing a painting lose a fraction of its color each day, not enough to alarm anyone else, but enough that your trained eye senses the fading. And in these encounters with the seven types who drain your energy, the fading always begins softly, like dusk pretending it is merely a passing cloud. What makes these people so difficult to recognize is not their intention, but their unconsciousness. Rarely do they wake with the desire to take from you. They are simply governed by a hunger they do not know how to satiate. You become their source of warmth, because you carry a light they have not yet learned to kindle within themselves. They stretch toward you instinctively, the way vines stretch toward the sun. And because your nature is radiant, you do not notice the small shadows forming at your feet. The most dangerous part of this dynamic is the confusion it breeds within you. You begin to question your own perception. You tell yourself that being drained is normal, that perhaps you are imagining things, that perhaps the fatigue is your fault. You rationalize the discomfort, painting excuses over your intuition as if trying to correct a masterpiece by covering it with softer strokes. But intuition does not lie. It simply whispers, quietly, persistently, until you finally listen. I have observed that those who feel deeply often hold a peculiar gift. They see the potential in others more vividly than others see themselves. This vision is beautiful, almost divine, but it comes with a hidden trap. You fall in love with what someone could be, not who they are. And these 7 types thrive in that gap. They do not drain you because they are powerful, but because you keep pouring into the empty spaces within them, believing that enough of your light could transform them. Yet, transformation is an internal decision, never borrowed, never imposed. There is a particular type among the 7 whose draining is almost invisible. They present themselves as fragile, wounded, gentle, souls who have been bruised by life. You step toward them with open arms, imagining you are offering comfort. But soon you realize they are drawing from you endlessly, not out of malice, but out of dependency. They lean on you so heavily that your own spine begins to bend. You start carrying emotions that are not yours, responsibilities that were never meant for your hands. And with every burden you silently accept, a piece of your own clarity dissolves. Another type drains through subtle domination. They do not shout or demand. They simply impose their presence upon your inner world. Their opinions seep into your thoughts like pigment spreading through water. Their expectations shape your behavior. You begin to mold yourself to keep peace, to maintain harmony, to avoid friction. You adjust your tone, your rhythm, your desires. And though you may not realize it at first, this self-editing is a slow extraction of energy, like carving away at marble until nothing remains but a shadow of the original form. I have also encountered those who drain by stirring guilt within you. They speak in soft half-truths, wrapped in emotional undertones that imply you are never doing enough. You are not available enough, not supportive enough, not attentive enough. Their disappointment, whether real or feigned, becomes a chain around your spirit. You begin offering more of yourself than your nature can sustain, and what begins as compassion slowly transforms into self-betrayal. But perhaps the most bewildering type is the one who drains you by mirroring your light. They reflect your intelligence, your humor, your curiosity, your depth. At first it feels like meeting a soulmate of the mind, but soon the mirroring reveals itself to be hollow, a strategy of connection rather than a genuine resonance. They take your stories, your insights, your ways of speaking, and weave themselves into a version that feels familiar but empty. It is not admiration. It is an attempt to siphon your essence, to stand near your flame in the hope that its warmth becomes theirs. Energy-draining relationships are rarely identified by conflict. They are identified by erosion, a slow diminishing of joy, a gradual dimming of intuition, a loss of inner spaciousness. You feel as if you are exhaling more than you inhale, giving more than you receive, understanding more than you are understood. Your soul becomes a well visited too often by those who bring no water of their own. If you are intuitive, spiritual, perceptive, you know this feeling intimately. It is the sensation of carrying someone else's emotional weight inside your chest. The awareness that your own path has become cluttered with footprints that are not yours. The recognition that your silence has become a refuge for someone who refuses to create their own. And yet even when you notice the draining, you hesitate to pull away. Why? Because deep within you lives a belief, taught by society, reinforced by your own compassion, that being good means being available, that loving means enduring, that understanding others requires diminishing yourself. But this belief is a prison disguised as kindness. The truth is this: the soul was never designed to be a vessel for the unresolved wounds of others. Your energy is not a public fountain. Your intuition was not meant to be a map for those who refuse to walk their own terrain. You are allowed to protect your light. You are allowed to choose where your spirit flows. There comes a threshold, subtle yet decisive, where the draining no longer disguises itself as connection. It reveals its true nature through a quiet fracture inside you, an internal resistance, a thinning of breath, a faint instinct that whispers, "This is not balance, this is extraction." Intuitive souls feel this before any outward sign appears. It is like watching a crack form inside a crystal, invisible to the untrained eye, unmistakable to one who has spent a lifetime studying the architecture of light. For a long time, you convince yourself that you can endure it, that your empathy is strong enough, your patience deep enough, your spirit vast enough to hold what others spill. You tell yourself that the draining is temporary, accidental, part of the human experience. But as days pass, your inner world begins to shift. The colors that once danced brightly within you become muted. Your thoughts lose their sharpness. Your intuition, your most sacred instrument, flickers like a candle exposed to wind. And you begin to understand a painful truth. Not everyone who touches your heart knows how to handle its fragility. Those 7 types of people do not merely take your energy, they reshape you. They mold your behavior, your boundaries, your sense of self. You begin anticipating their reactions before they speak. You silence yourself to avoid their discomfort. You shrink your light so they do not feel overshadowed. It is a distortion of the soul, subtle but profound. Like altering a painting, not by bold strokes, but by tiny, almost imperceptible adjustments that eventually change the entire composition. And then comes the awakening, an inner rupture where your spirit refuses to be stretched any further. This is the turning point, the moment when your consciousness begins to rise above the fog others have wrapped around you. You start noticing patterns that were previously invisible. You see how each of these 7 types feeds not on your presence, but on your willingness to ignore your own needs. You realize that every time you said yes while your inner voice whispered no, you opened the door for them to take more. Awakening is not loud, it is not dramatic. It is the quiet reclaiming of a territory you had forgotten belonged to you. It is the moment when your intuition grows louder than your guilt, when your spirit remembers its original shape, when you look at someone and finally see not who they pretend to be, nor who you hoped they were, but who they truly are beneath all illusions. And with this clarity comes a revelation that feels almost like betrayal. You understand that the draining was never about them. It was about the version of yourself you became in their presence, the part of you that believed love meant carrying what was not yours, the part that confused compassion with self-neglect, the part that dimmed your own light so that others could feel more comfortable in their darkness. This realization breaks something, but it also frees something. You begin to see that energy is not merely an emotional concept, it is a spiritual currency. Every interaction either invests in your soul or withdraws from it. Every person either sharpens your clarity or dulls it. Every connection either expands your inner horizon or narrows it. It becomes impossible to lie to yourself after this moment. You start noticing the muscles of your intuition strengthening again. You feel the subtle shift in your posture when someone's presence aligns with your spirit or disturbs it. You sense the way your energy contracts around certain individuals, as if your soul were stepping backward even while your body stands still. These are not coincidences. They are signals. And the 7 types who drain your energy begin to reveal their true outlines. You see the dependent one for what they are, someone seeking a foundation they must build themselves. You see the chaotic one, a soul tangled in storms they are unwilling to calm. You see the charming one, a performer seeking applause, not connection. You see the enigmatic one, hiding not depth but fear. You see the comparer, a mirror distorted by insecurity. You see the one living in crisis, addicted to flames rather than healing. And you see the self-centered one, blind not out of cruelty but out of profound unconsciousness. None are evil, but none are harmless. And now comes the paradox, one that may feel almost cruel in its simplicity. The moment you stop offering your energy freely, those who once clung to you will reveal their truest intentions. Some will retreat, some will resent you, some will attempt to pull harder, some will vanish as if they were never real, and a few, very few, will awaken alongside you, realizing their patterns through the mirror of your withdrawal. This is where intuitive, spiritual people often hesitate. For breaking these invisible bonds feels like stepping into cold water after years of warmth. There is fear, guilt, uncertainty, but there is also truth, and truth has a different texture than illusion. It stands upright inside you, even when your heart trembles, The draining stops not when they change, but when you change the doorway through which your energy flows. The moment you choose yourself, not as an act of selfishness, but as an act of sacred preservation, the architecture of your relationships transforms. You begin walking differently, thinking differently, breathing differently, and those who once siphoned your light can no longer reach you with the same invisible threads. This is not rejection. It is rebirth. It is the soul stepping into its rightful posture after years spent bending. There is a peculiar silence that arrives when you finally reclaim your energy, an unfamiliar quiet, delicate yet powerful, like the moment just before dawn when the world holds its breath. At first, this silence feels strange, almost empty, as though something is missing. But slowly you realize the emptiness you feel is simply the space that was occupied for so long by the weight of others. You begin to sense yourself again, not as a vessel filled by external needs, but as a source of light with its own rhythm, its own pulse, its own gravity. And as your energy returns, you start to notice that the world looks different. Colors regain their vibrancy, thoughts move with greater clarity. Your intuition, long muffled beneath layers of emotional noise, sharpens like a finely carved blade. What once felt confusing becomes transparent. The 7 types who drained you no longer appear mysterious or complicated. Their patterns become as visible as brushstrokes on a canvas. You understand now that what drained you was never their presence. It was your choice to stand in the shadows of your own light. With this understanding, your relationship with the world changes. You no longer offer yourself without discernment. You begin to value your energy as you would a rare pigment, precious, finite, created through inner alchemy. You give it not to those who demand it, nor to those who unconsciously pull at it, but to those whose presence awakens more of your own essence. This is not selfishness. It is the natural intelligence of the soul, the same intelligence that instructs the body not to let all its heat escape in winter. A strange paradox emerges as you grow into this new awareness. The more you protect your energy, the more you attract people who do not need to take it. Those who are whole within themselves sense your boundaries not as walls, but as a form of purity. They come to you not for shelter from their storms, but to walk beside you under the same sky. Conversations feel lighter, truer. You find yourself laughing again, not out of politeness, but from the deep well of your spirit. You feel seen, not for what you offer, but for what you are. And it is in this state of clarity that the greatest revelation arrives. Energy is not meant to be guarded like treasure, nor spilled like water. It is meant to flow in a balanced exchange, like breath between two living beings. When someone takes without giving, the breath becomes uneven. When you give without receiving, you suffocate. Harmony exists only when both souls inhale and exhale in rhythm. Without that rhythm, no relationship, no matter how beautiful its beginning, can remain whole. You begin to understand that you were never meant to carry others. You were meant to walk with them. You were never meant to save others. You were meant to illuminate their path so they could save themselves. You were never meant to shrink your light. You were meant to let it shine so brightly that only those capable of honoring it could remain. This realization changes the terrain of your heart. You stop mourning the people you lost when you set your boundaries, because you finally understand you did not lose them. You simply rose to a place where they could no longer reach, and those who were meant to walk with you found their footing in your clarity, not your sacrifice. As your energy becomes whole again, your intuition begins to reveal another truth, one that feels almost like a blessing whispered through the fabric of the universe. You were drained because you are luminous. Only those who carry light experience the shadow of others so intensely. Only those who feel deeply are affected by the chaos, the hunger, the unconsciousness of the 7 types. Your exhaustion was never a sign of weakness. It was evidence of your spiritual capacity. But now you know better. You see the mechanisms behind the shadows. You understand the cost of giving your light to those who cannot yet hold their own. And with this understanding comes a new way of moving through the world, calm, deliberate, sovereign. You learn to observe people the way an artist observes form, not to judge them, but to understand their true nature. You watch the way they use their words, the way they occupy silence, the way they respond to your boundaries, the way their presence affects your breath. You notice whether your spirit expands or contracts around them. You pay attention to the subtle changes in your posture, your thoughts, your internal landscape. These details reveal more than anyone's promises. Your intuition becomes your shield, your awareness your compass, your silence your sanctuary. You no longer fear being drained because you no longer walk blindly. You are no longer seduced by chaos disguised as passion, fragility disguised as intimacy, charm disguised as connection. You no longer confuse emotional urgency with emotional depth. You no longer mistake storms for soulmates. And in this new clarity, you begin to feel something extraordinary: freedom. A freedom not from people, but from illusions. A freedom not from love, but from distortion. A freedom not from the world, but from the invisible threads that once pulled your energy away from you. When you finally stand in this freedom, you discover that your light, your true, unfiltered light, does not need protection. It simply needs recognition. Because once you see it for what it is, you will never again allow someone to dim it, drain it, or borrow it for purposes that do not belong to your path. And so you walk forward, not with armor, but with awareness, not with fear, but with vision, not with exhaustion, but with a radiance that rises from the center of your being like dawn breaking through the last veil of night. And the world, sensing this new clarity in you, shifts accordingly. People approach differently. Energy moves differently. Life itself aligns differently. You have become the master of your own light again, and nothing, neither the 7 types nor the shadows they cast, can take it from you now. Warmth or even brilliance. They may cloak their emptiness in charm or their insecurity in humor. And you, being intuitive, spiritual, perceptive, open-hearted, you become the resting place for their unspoken needs, their unhealed wounds, their restless longing for someone to steady the chaos within them. But I will show you how to recognize them, not with suspicion but with clarity, not with fear but with vision. For once you see the architecture of their patterns, the bend of their shadows, the movement of their emotional gravity, you will never unknow it. And you will stop confusing compassion with self-sacrifice. You will stop mistaking your openness for obligation. You will stop shrinking your own light so that others do not feel threatened. Because the truth is simple: your energy is sacred, and those who drain it without your awareness have already been shaping the landscape of your inner world more than you allow yourself to admit.